Sam Altman is back in the saddle at OpenAI, along with Greg Brockman and an almost new board. Let's talk about everything that has happened in the last 24 hours in the final act of this truly Shakespearean saga playing out in Silicon Valley. My name is Carly Riley. If you have been enjoying this channel, please do consider subscribing to it. Comment, like, subscribe on the podcast side if that's where you listen to this. And a huge thank you, of course, to our sponsors, OpenSea, Web3Sense, and Ledger, who make this show possible. Let me introduce you to a brand new company that I could not be more excited about, Web3Sense. A Web3 analytics platform that combines on-chain data with social media insights to give you the deepest, most meaningful intelligence into any NFT community. I have tested other analytics platforms out there, but Web3Sense has the most comprehensive capabilities I've seen in the NFT ecosystem. They apply sophisticated data science to wallet histories to determine behavioral patterns and help shape predictive analytics. In other words, they can tell you which Twitter accounts are actually the influencers in your space. And they can tell you what resonates most within a community by looking at what other communities token holders are involved in. The number of use cases here is virtually unlimited. So whether you're a trader, creator, institution, brand, agency, I promise Web3Sense has data that you want to see with the deep and actionable insights that you need to build, analyze, grow, start, whatever you want to do within the NFT space and in terms of building a business and a community. Now, they are still in very early days, so they're eager to connect with the community. So if you're interested in learning more about what Web3Sense can do for you and your business, and you should be, go and fill out the very short form linked to in the show notes, and someone from their team will reach out with more information and an opportunity for a product demo. Trust me, you won't regret it. Y'all know the phrase, not your keys, not your crypto. Well, in a world where too many people have had to learn that the hard way, Overpriced JPEGs is proud to partner with Ledger, the world leader in critical digital asset security. Ledger's Nano S Plus and Nano X hardware wallets, paired with the Ledger Live app, Ledger's own software for setting up your Nano device and managing your crypto assets, is the easiest way to start your crypto journey while maintaining full control of your digital assets. You can use all your favorite dApps with Ledger Live, accessing 15 plus Web3 apps, including 1inch, Paraswap, Lido, and Zerion. So you can not only manage, but also grow your portfolio. And Ledger Live is available on mobile and desktop. Securing digital assets shouldn't be complicated. Ledger is as easy as it gets. Uncompromising security, effortless connectivity, full transparency, Ledger is your one-stop shop to trade and track crypto, grow your assets, and manage NFTs. Secure your future with Ledger. Visit shop.ledger.com today or check out the link in the show notes. All right, folks, the only decision left to be made was, of course, made, which was that Sam had to be brought back. I mean, you had over 700 of 770 employees threatening to leave. You had committed money that was going to be pulled. There was, by the time this happened, really no outcome other than this that could happen. The only question was going to be the fine details, the fine print here, if you will. So one of those fine print details was who was going to be on this new board. Well, we have the answer now. The board is even smaller than it was before. We have Brett Taylor, who is the former CEO of Salesforce. We have Larry Summers, the former Treasury Secretary. A little bit of a weird pick to me, but okay. And you got Adam D'Angelo, who was the founder and CEO of Quora. If you recognize that name, it's because he was on the old board and he's now still on this initial new board. We are going to talk more about this new board in just a bit, but I will say people are happy. Microsoft is happy. Emmett Shear is happy. Josh Kushner, Thrive Capital, presumably the other investors are happy. Greg Brockman, Sam Altman, they're happy, happy, happy. Who's not happy? Presumably Helen Toner. Not happy. Helen Toner, for those who missed it, she was on the original board. She was a part of this decision to oust Sam. According to Kara Swisher, the tension between Helen and Sam goes a little way back. It was more academic and philosophical, but again, it has been quite some time in the making. Helen is an employee of Georgetown, and she had written an academic, or what she called an academic paper at one point, that was actually pretty critical of OpenAI, and in fact praised Anthropic, which is not only one of OpenAI's competitors, but it was actually a competitor started by former OpenAI executives who ended up having a riff within OpenAI and left to start Anthropic. So this board member of OpenAI writes a paper, criticizes OpenAI, praises their key competitor. Not a great look. And Sam had apparently confronted Helen about this and said, like, hey, like, I think you're underestimating how bad it is or how bad it looks for an OpenAI board member to be publicly criticizing us and praising one of our competitors. Helen apparently stood by it, defended it. And so there has been tension there for some time. And Sam Altman and his cohort have wanted her off the board for a little while now, it sounds like. Now, Helen, for her part, apparently was more than happy for the outcome of all of this to be that OpenAI is just shut down altogether. In fact, I've seen reports saying in her mind, that would have been the job being done well. Now, I've talked about this several times in covering this whole story, but I think it's really important for people to understand this was not a typical board. This was not your typical board with your typical maximize shareholder profit mandate. This was a nonprofit board overseeing this for-profit company with the mandate to protect humanity and to usher in a safe era of artificial intelligence. And so I think Helen saw that as what she was doing in all of this. And if OpenAI shuts down, that just means that it wasn't ushering in AI safely enough or whatever. But clearly she's been overruled and she has now stepped back. Also not happy in this situation, you gotta assume Tashamccauley, the other board member who was a part of this whole coup, who has now stepped back. The issues between Tasha and Sam, again, according to Kara Swisher, were a bit deeper. And Tasha apparently was the member of the board who was most apocalyptic about what this technology potentially will do. And she had serious concerns around, quote, who had their finger on the button. Now, I would love to know what her specific concerns about Sam were and why she felt that Sam was not someone who should have his finger on the button, but we have not gotten any of that kind of helpful, specific clarity from any of the board members, which I would say is like my chief complaint about the way that this has all been handled. Is like, I'm very sympathetic to the idea that these folks had concerns about the way this company was being run or about the future of AI, but it's harder to be sympathetic when you don't understand what you're even supposed to be sympathetic about because nothing specific has been stated. Okay, so Tasha, presumably not happy about this outcome, but again was overruled. She is no longer on the board. Finally, happy or not happy? Unclear. Adam D'Angelo, the member of the board who was on the board as part of this whole coup and who is still on the board now. According to Kara Swisher, yet again, the issues for Adam were more, as she put it, basic Silicon Valley bro-off, seemingly some sort of ego issue in this whole thing, which if that is true, that is so disgraceful. Like, look, you can disagree with Helen, you can disagree with Tasha. I don't have enough information to feel like I can make a decision on this, but I can at least respect that they seemingly stuck to their guns. They said, we think what's going on here is dangerous, or, well, they didn't say that, that's the problem, but we can assume that they said, hey, what's going on here to us doesn't meet our mandate as safely ushering in a new wave of AI. So we are going to fight tooth and nail to do what we think is right. And then we're going to step away when it doesn't happen and we're going to admit defeat. But to have caused all of this chaos, to have made this decision, to have done it in this highly unprofessional way, only to not then be convicted enough about the whole thing to stand by it in the end, and for it all to maybe have just been some like ego competition, that feels really shameful, frankly. And you won't be surprised to hear that apparently it was a bit of a sticking point for Sam Altman and their cohort that Adam was going to stay on the board. They didn't want that, but this was a concession they ultimately made in order to just get a deal done, to push something through. And that's how we've landed where we have. It is important to know, however, that this board is really just an initial step. So Sam Altman notably no longer has a seat on the board in this new configuration. It is expected that he will ultimately get a seat back on the board, but that this, again, was just like an initial step to get a deal done. Also, Microsoft. Folks are assuming that Microsoft will likely be able to have a board seat at some point, even if it's just as an observer, even if they don't have like a voting board seat, they just have a seat at the table so that they don't ever get caught in this situation again. Satyanadella, in the interviews he's given, has made it very clear that like, yeah, we're not going to be surprised like this again. We've learned. And so that's clearly important to Microsoft as well. There are some regulatory concerns about Microsoft having a board seat. So I think some of that is what needs to be worked through before it's finalized. But again, assumes that Microsoft will have some sort of presence on this board. Now, look, I think this was the right decision. I suppose, again, in some ways, I just feel like we still don't have enough information. I've talked about this yesterday. I know I've met Sam Altman a little bit. I tend to like him. So I tend to agree with this, with how this has played out in terms of bringing him back on board. But I am definitely in the camp that thinks there should be some level of an investigation to this whole thing. I mean, Sam has committed to having an investigation around how this decision was made, which I think is important. And simultaneously, I would love an investigation into any of the amorphous claims that they have made about why they were concerned about Sam to begin with. So I've said this before, Elon Musk has really been beating this drum. Elon Musk, of course, was one of the co-founders of OpenAI before he really had a split with Sam and others and left because he was very concerned about it becoming a for-profit. He is in favor of it being the entirely non-profit model. And he shared something, a document that was basically written on GitHub that he says was sent to him by former OpenAI employees who were were disgruntled or concerned. I think the most interesting part of what they said, or the piece that made a certain amount of sense to me, was they were like, look, yeah, all of the current OpenAI employees were backing Sam, but that's basically because Sam has loaded the company with his, and I'm paraphrasing here, but like his sycophants, or the people who ideologically align with him, agree with him fully. They were saying, if you look back and you go back a couple years to the time when this shift from a nonprofit to a for-profit was happening, there was a lot of churn at the company. And there were actually a lot of employees who were very unhappy with the direction the company was going and the leadership of Sam, and people were quitting and leaving and were concerned by his leadership. Now, they listed a number of complaints in this, again, document that Elon shared. I didn't find them overly compelling. I'll share some of them here. The first bullet pointed complaint here is Sam's demand for researchers to delay reporting progress on specific secret research initiatives, which were later dismantled for failing to deliver sufficient results quickly enough. Those who questioned this practice were dismissed as bad culture fits and even terminated, some just before Thanksgiving 2019. I don't really understand what that's saying. And it also just reads like, I don't like my boss. It's unclear to me what that is saying. Another bullet point here is Sam's discreet yet routine exploitation of OpenAI's nonprofit resources to advance his personal goals, particularly motivated by his grudge against Elon following their fallout. So a little bit like, not surprised Elon shared this. Sam's incongruent promise to research projects for compute quotas, causing internal distrust and infighting. The operation team's tacit acceptance of the special rules that applied to Greg, navigating intricate requirements to avoid being blacklisted. Like, there's just not enough context to any of these. It would be helpful to actually list perhaps the specific special rules that applied to Greg. Just saying this in the abstract, it feels like employees who didn't like the way that a company was being run, but along the lines of the way that any disgruntled employee maybe doesn't like the way a company is being run. Nothing specific about we think there's a real threat to the way this is being run or the way they're handling the artificial intelligence. They're not taking it sufficiently seriously enough. I am left with something to be desired having read these. I'm not persuaded there's something wrong here, but I still would like it looked into because I think the stakes are high enough here that there should be an investigation to better understand all of the concerns, what is going on, get a full picture here so that action, if needed, can be taken. All right, in closing this, I want to share this quote, this tweet by Emily Chang, who has been reporting on the story very well throughout this entire thing. She said, there are still big questions about why this happened, how much was due to petty personal issues and egos versus fundamental disagreements about the future of AI. It's only humanity at stake, so let's hope they figure it out. And that's really where I am, is like, I want an investigation because I would like to know the answer to this. Was this literally just petty ego shit? Or is there something legitimate here? Are there kernels of something legitimate here? Let's get to the bottom of it, please, because this is important enough that it's worth understanding. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please do consider subscribing to the channel, liking, commenting, subscribing to the podcast. I will be off tomorrow as it is Thanksgiving here in the States, so I will be spending some time with family. Hopefully you are too, if you are also celebrating. And otherwise, I will see you next week. Let me tell you about OpenSea Studio. Yes, you know OpenSea. Perhaps you use OpenSea, but did you know they launched OpenSea Studio? It's a one-stop shop for all creators to launch and manage their projects. Using OpenSea Studio, you can create and manage a drop end-to-end, including setting up allow list phases, uploading media and metadata, which has helpful preview functionality, and building the drop page itself. You can also mint an NFT or collection where the creator owns the contract. OpenSea Studio lets you build on all blockchains compatible with OpenSea, and there are 8 of them. Lets buyers mint an NFT from your collection using a credit or debit card, and there are no coding or technical skills required to do any of the above. OpenSea will be adding more features and functionality to OpenSea Studio over the coming months, including revamped collection pages with new storytelling modules, and more ways to leverage NFT technology, including redeemables, which y'all know I'm a huge fan of, and analytics. I'm an OpenSea user because they have the best selection of NFTs and a truly inclusive view of the NFT ecosystem, supporting, as I said, 8 chains in 8 global languages. And because I trust the systems they've built to help keep the space safe, like copyman protection, malicious URL detection or removal, robust verification, and more. It is why they are the place to buy, sell, and now create NFTs. Check them out at the link below, and you'll be supporting the show in the process.